chat.
Let me see if it's working. Ah,
Yeah.
yes. There we go.
Yes.
Yes. Seems to
Right
be.
after this ad from Jimmy John's.
Yeah. Right after this ad from whatever medication you're supposed to ask your doctor about. All right.
Side effects include everything that you don't have.
Yeah. Side effects may include death.
We could only be so lucky.
All right. Well, we're good to go, I guess. Hopefully, if Streamlabs crashes, then I guess we'll do what we can.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I got everything ready, so
All right.
I'm all set when you are.
Here we go. In three, two, one. 3, 2, 1. There we go. Greetings, programs, and we're back for another episode of the Nerd Cave Retro Show. My name is Jason Robbins.
And my name is Derek Diamond.
Yeah, we're having a little bit of Streamlabs problems tonight for streaming. A weird little update they had going on. Then right as we were about to go and just record the audio podcast, it decided to pop up and allow us to stream live. So hello, everyone watching live and on YouTube later.
Streamlabs said, psych!
Yeah.
You guys can go live.
But my name is Jason Robbins.
And my name is Derek Diamond.
And how was your weekend, my friend?
Pretty uneventful. Didn't really do anything. No, I'm kidding. So we actually had, at long last, we had the premiere for the feature, and it went way better than I could have ever anticipated.
Yeah.
So leading up to it, because we did sell tickets for the premiere, and I'm thinking if we get a total of 50, 60 people, because I think we had around 65 for the Parker Syndrome premiere. So if we match that, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
We had a total of 93 people show up.
That's a good bit of people.
We sold, I think, 54 tickets, and about half of those we sold the day before.
Wow.
So
how did people react to the movie? I didn't get to go. And I so apologize for not being able to go. But
it's all good.
How did the crowd react?
Very positively. I had people telling myself and Samantha and Chad afterwards that they really enjoyed it. They thought it was funny. They thought it was very relatable. They enjoyed the story. And what I did the same thing I did for the last premiere. I stood in the back because I was watching more of the audience reaction as opposed to watching the movie itself. And the humor hit in places that I hoped it would, and it got a good ovation afterwards. And people are wanting to see it again, and are asking, like, where can we watch it online? Which it's not going to be available for a while because it's got to hit the festival circuit. But I think we are going to have more screenings of it later on in the year because people have been asking about it.
That's good. Hopefully I get to make the next one. And
yeah.
Rampage in the chat room, I think the stream might be a little choppy. So it says the audio is fine, moves like 1 frame a second. So hopefully with this new update they did for Streamlabs, hopefully it'll catch up. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I apologize for if it looks bad. Just hang in there with us. And some Streamlabs did an update today, and you know how that goes. Every time something doesn't update it, they just have to break everything. So hopefully you can at least listen to it. So
then you have to do the update for the update to fix the issues with the update.
Yeah, exactly. You got to
trust me. That's every Adobe program that's ever existed for as long as it's been in existence.
The update for the update for the update. That's just the world we live in now.
But yeah, no, the premiere went, like I said, vastly exceeded my expectations. So, um, yeah, it was really good. I was really happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, I'm glad. And I wish I could have gone. The movie is really good, and I was just curious to see how the crowd reacted to it. And I'm glad it went off better than expected. I think.
Yeah, so I'm hope to be submitting it to festivals starting either this week or next, and then hopefully we'll do another screening maybe in like March might be a little too early, but April maybe in early May.
Yeah.
So just the best way to find out is just follow the movie on social media at the feature movie, and once we figure out a date, I'll let everyone know.
Awesome. My weekend was pretty uneventful. I've been kind of under the weather the last couple of days,
Same.
and still under the weather this evening. And I'm just gonna trudge forth, sally forth, as they say.
This is the best I've felt literally since the start of the year. I've been getting sick like off and on since January 1st,
Oof.
and finally went to the doctor I think on Wednesday, and then got an antibiotic and took the last bit of it today, and it's the best I've felt since I started getting sick. So hopefully I'm out of the woods. I hope you don't get what I've been having because it's not fun.
I hope not. I haven't felt good for a few days now, so I'm gonna wait till about Wednesday or Thursday. If I'm still feeling under the weather, then I will go to the doctor, which I'm dreading.
Yeah, it's never fun, but yeah, if you're not better by then, I would definitely say go.
But we'll see. We'll see how I feel come middle of the week. Um, Joey says Sally Forth. I think I dated her in high school.
I've never
uh,
heard that one before. That's good.
yeah,
I'll have to steal that one.
that's like some old West slang, I think.
Yeah.
But tonight is our top five episode. We do these once a month, where we don't do a normal episode, but we do. We asked the community to send us their top five lists, and this week, Derek thought it would be a good idea that we'd finally do top five game controllers, and we've been talking about doing this one for a while.
Yeah, because like something it's very important for a console to have a good controller. Like if the controller's uncomfortable, it to me it takes the experience. It takes me right out of the experience. You got to
Yes.
have at least a decent controller. And I've read both our lists and we've come up with some good ones and the listeners have as well.
And I think before we go into the list, I do want to say this is not on my list, but I did want to say there's a special honor honorable mention that just straight goes to the original NES controller. That was not only was Super Mario Brothers, a watershed moment in gaming, but the Nintendo controller itself. We never had anything like that before with the D-pad and the A and B buttons. That took gaming in a whole new direction, and everything that's come since is based off that simple little controller. So I just wanted to make sure people knew that I do hail it as one of the greatest controllers of all time, but not a personal favorite.
Yeah, it's the most important controller of all time because it's the foundation for what other controllers are based upon. Had the NES controller not come around, who knows what controllers would be? We might still be using joysticks.
Yeah, no kidding. And that's another thing I wanted to say. I do like a good joystick, like, old Pac-Man, arcade joysticks like Pac-Man, Galaga, things like that. Street Fighter, those type of joysticks. But the worst kind were the original Atari joysticks. I don't care what anybody says. Those joysticks were terrible. Um, they were awful. And in the Atari 5200, joysticks were terrible. The 7800 were terrible. And I don't think that you can even find an Atari 5200 controller that even works these days. But those 2600 controllers were not great. I mean, there was no good way to hold them. The sticks were stiff. The one button it was terrible. Let's just admit those were terrible.
Rampage says joysticks are awesomeness, and he wishes they weren't so expensive.
Yeah.
Everything's expensive these days, but I remember one of my uncles actually had an old Atari 2600. It didn't work at the time that I discovered it, but I remember grabbing the joystick and I'm like, how did people play with this?
Yeah.
Like it just seemed like another language to me.
Yeah. I like a good flight stick though. I used to have a really good flight
Yeah.
stick back when I was a kid. I played Rebel Assault and the TIE Fighter, all those kind of games, flight simulators and stuff. So I like a good flight stick.
Remember the steering wheels for
Yeah,
racing games that you would have? Those were fun.
those were always fun. Yeah, but this
It's the
is not
closest I got to driving a car at the time.
this is not favorite driving peripherals or flying peripherals. This is favorite game controllers. So, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Let's see. So I didn't have any honorable mentions, though. If I did, I would throw the NES controller in there as well for what we talked about. It's the grandfather of
Mhm.
controllers. It laid the foundation for the Super Nintendo and other controllers as well. Had the NES controller not been invented, who knows what gaming would be like these
Yeah.
days. But my number 5 is the DualShock 4. And I know a lot of the PlayStation controllers are very similar in design, but this feels the most comfortable to me. Like the just holding it in my hands, it feels it probably sounds weird to say, but it feels softer in my hands than the other
Yeah.
ones do. And I like the little divots in the analog sticks. It feels much more
Mhm.
natural that way. And it's just, a really comfortable controller for me. And I like that PlayStation has had a consistent look and feel with their controllers, because if you go from, PS1 to PS2, there's not really a huge change. Unlike Super Nintendo to N64, which was a very drastic
Yeah.
one. I like that consistency with PlayStation. My number 4, I actually think this is a very underrated controller, the Switch Pro controller. I remember finding out how expensive it was, but I didn't care. I
Yeah.
wanted to get one. I really liked the look of it, and to be honest, it's my favorite way to play Switch games is to
Mine
put
too. Yeah.
the tablet on its kickstand, sync up the Pro controller, and play it that way.
Mhm.
I like the Joy Cons. I like the handheld style as well, but it's that perfect hybrid when you use the Pro controller and you just have the Switch like in its portable mode.
Well, it's the
It's
it's the closest you can get to an Xbox 360 controller.
Yes, agreed. Which, speaking of that, my number 3 is the Xbox 360 controller. I spent a lot of time playing Xbox 360. Besides Super Nintendo, it's probably the system I've played the most. Between the Halo games, when Rare re-released the Banjo Kazooie games on the Xbox Arcade, I played those a lot. Just played a ton of Xbox 360 games during its heyday, so got very familiar with that. Um, I like the different variants that were released for it. Like I remember having the Halo Reach version of the Xbox 360. It had a really cool like tech look to it.
Mhm.
There was a Star Wars Xbox 360 with an R2D2 style controller that was really cool. Never had that one, but it looked really cool.
I had the
My number,
original white 360, and it red ringed on me twice before I eventually just
uh,
said screw it and bought a slim.
yeah, that happened to me, and that's why I got the Halo Reach one.
Mhm.
Was I had several friends who got the red ring, and for the longest time I avoided it, but then just one fateful day it happened, and I'm like, oh no.
And that was the thing about it. It wasn't like, it might not happen to mine. Like it's going to happen to every first generation Xbox 360. Like it was going to red ring at some point.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of
When?
when it's going to happen.
Yep.
But it had a good run. Like it lasted for a few years, and then it just finally bit the dust. But
Hmm.
I really like my Halo Reach Xbox 360. It has a really cool look to it.
Yeah.
My number 2 is the Super Nintendo Entertainment System controller. This was a really close between my 1 and 2. Um, my favorite console of all time. I think it took the NES controller to the next level
Hmm.
with the additional 2 buttons. It really elevated, what a controller would be. So much so that Sega Genesis had to add two more buttons so they could try and outdo Nintendo, I feel like. But it feels a little flat playing it these days, but I still like holding that controller because it's like as soon as it touches my hand, a flood of memories come in from playing Super Mario World
Mhm.
to Link to the Past, Turtles in Time, so many other games. And I think just because I got so used to playing it, it's like I never forget how to use it
Yeah.
because I've played the Super Nintendo so much.
Well, I mean,
But
you
my
see, I have a Hyperkin right here, a Hyperkin USB
Mhm.
SNES controller, and this is what I use when I emulate and play games because I even like to go back and play the original NES games using an SNES controller just because it's more comfortable.
It's got an interesting shape to it. At first look, it doesn't seem like it should be comfortable, but it is once you hold it in your hands.
Yeah.
So it's deceptively comfortable. But speaking of comfortable, my number one is the GameCube controller.
Hmm.
When I held a GameCube controller for the first time, I said, "This is the best controller I've ever used." We've had the debate. I have small child hands, so it would fit perfectly into my hands, and I love the creases in the trigger buttons, the L and R buttons. Your fingers just naturally rest in them. The buttons are placed perfectly. I like that the A button is significantly bigger than all the other ones. I like the bean shape of the X and Y buttons. I prefer the C stick as opposed to the C buttons that were on the N64 controller.
Hmm.
One that you put an asterisk by this, it is a GameCube controller, but do you remember the Wavebird?
The Wave Bird. I
It was
don't.
the wireless GameCube controller.
I think if I saw it, I would remember it.
It was a little bit bigger and it was like a dark or it was like a light gray color.
Hmm.
But you plug the little transmitter into your GameCube and you could set it to a different channel. So you could plug up to four Wavebirds into your system and you set like player one on channel one, player two on channel two,
Hmm.
so it wouldn't interfere as far as the signal goes.
Yeah.
But I still have both my Wavebirds to this day, and that the Wavebird is probably my favorite, but I throw it in the same category because it's essentially the same as the GameCube controller. But this controller is so popular that every time a Super Smash Brothers game comes out, they make a GameCube controller peripheral for whatever system Smash
Hmm.
Brothers is on.
Because it's the
That
ultimate
tells you
controller for playing Smash.
mhm. It's still to this day the best way to play Smash Brothers. But I always harken back to the GameCube controller as my number one. So I really like the SNES controller a lot, but GameCube has to be my number one.
That's not bad. I almost put GameCube as my number one, but I knew you were going to, so I switched mine up a little bit. For my list, my number five is the 8-bit Doe SN30 Pro. It's I wish I would have grabbed it to show on screen, but it's just like an SNES controller, but it has dual analog sticks on it, and it has four shoulder buttons instead of two. It also has rumble, motion controls, and turbo function. So I usually switch between using that and the Switch Pro controller when I'm playing my Switch on the TV. Just depends on what game I'm playing. Like if I'm playing a lot of the old NES or Super NES stuff, that's the controller that I use for that type of stuff. Like the Castlevania collection, the Capcom collection, stuff like that. I use that controller for those type of games.
I really need to get one of those controllers. I've heard nothing but good things.
It's so good, and it's not that expensive either. Yeah, it's and Joey Image says he has one too, and he loves it. It's a really good controller, probably one of the best controllers that 8-bit Doe makes. So if you like using an SNES style controller and you want to use you want to play even modern games with it, you can use it on modern games too because it has the dual analog sticks, and it's a really comfortable controller. I really enjoy using it. And
Yeah, I need to get one.
Rampage said his number one controller of all time is for Atari Jaguar. That thing, have you ever seen a Jaguar controller? That thing looks like a cash register.
I can't say that I have.
That thing is so ugly. It's terrible. We should do top 5 worst controllers of all time. That's what we should do next time. There'll be
We'll say the Jaguar is my number 1 through 5.
it would just be all Atari controllers. It would be just all the worst controllers. And for my number 4, of course, the Xbox 360 controller. Still to this day, when they took those analog sticks and they moved them to be in a more comfortable position, the controller itself was just the perfect size. Those things were built to last too. I don't know anybody that broke an Xbox 360 controller. Like PlayStation controllers they're pretty brittle compared to Xbox 360 controllers.
I still have my original white
Mm-hmm.
Xbox 360 controller. It still works great.
Yeah, they're great, and you can Bluetooth them to your. If you play games on your computer, you can Bluetooth it to the computer. They still work. They're still great. They're still one of the greatest controllers of all time. Number 3, I can see this one is a little controversial in our notes here for Derek. He put a little frowny face next to it.
I'm just messing with you.
It's the Duke, aka what me and Wally lovingly refer to the canned ham, because it feels like you're holding a canned ham in your hands. And I know the Duke gets a lot of hate. A lot of people hated that controller, but being somebody like me who is 6'3", and I have Andre the Giant sized mittens over here, can palm a basketball. It was a really comfortable controller for me because it was so big. I can understand that people hate it that have smaller hands. I understand that, but when you're born a giant, it's nice to have big things that fit.
Yeah, with me, it's like the controller plays good. Like it's not a bad controller. I just feel very insecure every time I hold it.
How can a controller make you feel insecure?
Because I have small hands. I'm 5'7", like a buck 70.
I bet Donald Trump would hate the Duke. Bazing! I hate this controller. The worst controller of all time. It's too big for my tiny hands. I'm not getting political. That was always been the joke that Donald Trump has tiny hands.
Yeah.
Don't get mad, people. It's a rumor. It's just a rumor. And then of course
He
2,
allegedly has small
allegedly has small hands. And number 2 is of course the GameCube controller. Everything that you said is it's comfortable. All the buttons just seem to be in the perfect spot, and I could just use this if someone came to me and said you can only use one controller for the rest of your life, it would be the GameCube controller, because you can pretty much do everything you need to with it, and it's perfect. It feels like a toy, it looks like a toy, but it plays like a beast.
And it spanned generations, like I've said,
Yeah.
like with Smash Brothers. It's one of the most like generational, like long lasting controllers really of all time.
I guarantee you that Nintendo is still going to be issuing that controller for future consoles for the next 50 years, probably. And then,
However, they decide to top Smash Ultimate, which I don't know if they'll ever do.
Yeah. And then, of course, my number 1 is, of course, the Super Nintendo. What? Nintendo? What the hell is a Nintendo? The Super Nintendo.
The Mountain Dew branded Super Nintendo.
Yeah. The Super Nintendo controller is the greatest controller of all time, because it took what the original NES controller did. It moved the buttons into a more comfortable position. It put the shoulder buttons on, which were, to this day, one of the greatest inventions, because especially for the old racing games and flight games, all that kind of stuff. It's the controller that everything that has come after has been modeled after, especially for the button placement.
Joey says he hopes someone has the Power Glove or the U-Force on their list. I thought about putting the Power Glove on mine just to be a troll.
It's so bad.
It's so bad.
And Wale is in the chat room, and he said the Duke was too big for his hands. But I don't know. I like the Duke. It fit perfectly. Like I would still use the Duke today if I could.
Next time I go to a retro gaming store, I'm gonna find one of those controllers and just show how big it is compared to my hands.
Yeah.
I'll put it on the Nerd Cave Retro Twitter.
All right. But yeah, that's my list. Number one will always be the Super Nintendo controller. I just think it's one of the most just perfect controllers ever made. It just is.
If someone put the Super Nintendo as their number one, I would never argue with it.
Joey,
It's really good.
Joey and Wally in the chat room put Super Nintendo as a French spelling. It says Joey says it's the French version. So if you had a Super Nintendo, you were lucky in France.
I just want now a Mountain Dew branded Super Nintendo. Like that would have been a dream of mine as a
Yeah, it would have
kid.
been great. And no, nobody has said the Dreamcast yet, Wally. I'm sure it's on somebody's list. I didn't put it on mine because I'm still new to the Dreamcast. I've only played it for a few months now. But that is a really good controller. I do have to say that's a really good controller.
Mm-hmm. Wonder whose list it could be on.
I don't know who could it be, but let's go ahead and go down
I
the
don't know.
list. And before we
know.
do that, let's before we go into the listener list, let's do our shout outs. What do you say?
Yeah, let's do it. As always, we like to shout out our awesome patrons over at patreon.com/nerdcaveretro. We want to shout out John West, Daniel Salmon, Tyler Watson, Axeblade07, Armez Jackson, Carlos Longoria, aka I am the Rampage, Staff Sergeant Sketch, Gus and Penny, Matthew Salmon, Mr. Joey Image, and Mama Diamond herself,
Mama Diamond.
Donna Diamond. Can't even say my own last name right. But yeah, thank you all for your continued contributions for the podcast. We are still a bit short of the $50 level, so if you want us to resume doing the fun commentary tracks like National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Batman the Animated Series, Transformers the movie, the Double Dragon movie, the Super Mario Brothers movie, some of the greatest movies ever made, I'm listing off here. Other animated shows like Gargoyles, Darkwing Duck, Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. The list is near endless, and there's a ton more that we want to do. But you got to get us back up to that $50 level, and you can do so just by heading over to patreon.com/nerdcaveretro. And for new patrons, be sure to send us your social media information, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, so we can give you a proper shout out.
And for first up, I'm going to go through the ones we got in the email first. This is from Mr. Axeblade07, one of our longtime listeners and contributors to the show. He wrote, in no particular order, start with his number 5, the Switch Pro controller, which we talked about. It's a great controller, very reminiscent of the Xbox 360. And I don't have the Bluetooth version. I like to have mine wired. For some reason, I'm just weird like that. Do you prefer Bluetooth or wired?
Bluetooth.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I understand wired though.
It just, I don't know. I feel it might just be psychological, but I feel like if I go unwired, there's going to be lag, and that just makes me.
It's
feel
the
weird.
retro gamer in you that wants a wired controller.
No, I'm still traumatized from those, those wireless controllers we used to have back in the day that just did not work.
Yeah, I was about to say, in your defense, the early wireless controllers were pretty awful.
And his number 4 is the DualSense for the PS5. I still haven't played a PS5, so
I haven't either.
I can't speak to it.
They look cool though.
Yeah, they do. I actually really like the look of the PS5 and the new stuff. Number 3 is the Xbox latest generation consoles. And I, of course, haven't played anything past the 360, so I can't speak to the newer controllers. But, I mean, if they're still using the 360 controllers, they got to be good. Number 2 is the GameCube. And number 1, the Super Nintendo. Good man. Good man.
I don't dispute it. I mean, like I said, if somebody puts Super Nintendo as their number 1, I'm not going to argue with it. Let's see. Next up, we have Mr. Armez Jackson. His honorable mentions, the Wii controller with the nunchuck. I actually liked the Wii controller. It took a little bit of getting used to, but the wireless experience or the remote experience was actually kind of fun, especially with Wii Sports. The NES gamepad, One we haven't mentioned, the NES Zapper with Duck Hunt. That
Yeah,
was fun.
that didn't
I
even
liked I liked the Zapper.
that didn't even enter my consciousness when we were talking about controllers. But yeah, the Zapper was great.
Yeah, it was so much fun playing Duck Hunt with that thing.
I wish I could have shot the stupid dog.
One of the most genius additions to Smash Brothers was the dog from
Damn
Duck Hunt.
dog.
When he was announced, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna beat the you know what out of that dog, because it showed him doing his taunt. Like you can actually do the laugh as one of his taunts, and I'm like, oh, it just drives me insane.
Stupid dog.
And his last honorable mention, the Guitar Hero 5 guitar, which we didn't talk
Ooh.
about the Guitar Hero and the Rockstar instruments.
I didn't even
Those
think
were
of that
fun.
either. I love the Guitar Hero guitars. I wish Guitar Hero was still a thing, honestly.
I love the Aerosmith version of Guitar Hero. That was so much fun.
I like the Van Halen Guitar Hero myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Number 5, NES Advantage, his first intro to the turbo button.
Hmm.
Number 4, PS1 with DualShock, my first time playing with a 360-degree capabilities in a gaming system. Number 3, the Sega 6-button controller, 16-bit gaming at its finest. Like this better than the SNES gamepad. I'm not going to lie, the first time I played a 6-button Sega controller, I was a little overwhelmed because I'm like, what do I do with all these buttons? Number 2, the Xbox Duke. Lots
Yeah.
of shade for this beefy controller, but it fit perfectly in my large hands. And number 1, Xbox 360 controller, in my opinion, best controller ever. Solid battery life, totally agree with that. Comfortable analog placement, nice buttons, and great design. Don't
Virtual
disagree with
high
any of that.
virtual high five from my big hand bros out there.
uh yeah.
uh, let's see. And now we're gonna move into our Discord lists. Which, if you haven't joined our Discord, what are you doing? Head over to Twitter
Yeah.
right now. We have a permanent link right up there at the top of the page that you can go join our Discord server and go hang out with all of us in there and have fun. And don't be a dick in there. That's our only rule. Don't be a dick or you'll be booted out. And
It's the number one rule of anything in life.
yeah, just don't be stupid. Just be nice. That's all you got to do. It's not hard to
It's
be nice.
it's not hard.
And up first, let's see. Where is? Where? Oh, here we go. Top 5
Joey should be
controllers
first.
for Mr. Joey Image, who's in the chat room right now. Let's see. He's got the PS5, the PS4, the Backbone PS5. It's a PS5 controller phone clip for iPhone, which is kind of cool that they're doing stuff like that these
Yeah.
days. And I will say
That
one
is
of
really cool.
my favorite peripherals is the clip that's sort of like the Backbone for that I found for my Nintendo Switch that actually gives it handles to hold on to. That was the greatest purchase I ever made for my Nintendo Switch. It's so comfortable to play in handheld mode.
I need to get on that.
You do. I bought mine for $6 at this place called
What?
yeah. There's this place in Biloxi called Bargain Bins, and what they do is just like they have these bins in there that are just full of random stuff, and you just go in and just rifle through everything. I've bought like big boxes of like potato chips and stuff there before. I've bought coffee there before, like big boxes of stuff, and it'll be like $6 for each item. So you can go in there and just find all kind of cool stuff, and it's like $6 for whatever it is. And that's where I
That's
found
genius.
yeah, and that's where I found that thing. It wasn't even in a box. It was just randomly just sitting there in this bin. I was like, this looks like it fits the Nintendo Switch. So I bought it at home, and it was great. The greatest purchase I ever made. $6.
That's a heck of a find.
Yeah, I know. And to finish out Joey's list, the NES Max. I never had an NES Max. Did you ever play one of those?
Mm-mm.
It's one
I
of
did
those.
not.
It's got like it's got the turbo function and everything on it, and but the D-pad is sort of like this sliding button sort of thing. I never played it, so I don't know how good. I can't speak to how good the NES Max was. I had an Advantage,
either.
but I never had an NES Max. But of course, his number one is the NES Advantage itself. And his honorable mentions, of course, the original NES controller, the Dreamcast, good controller, but too big, even though he loves the Dreamcast. I don't think it's too big. Maybe it's because I got big hands. Shout out to my big hand bros out there. The custom made PS4 Days Gone controllers that are on Etsy. One uses actual empty bullet shells for the buttons. That's awesome.
That's sick. I love that even though it's not a game list, Days Gone still made his list in some way. I love it.
Joey in the chat room, he says, I went to Bargain Bins today and got me some bullets, a box of cream cheese, picture of Ernest Borgnine, and 3 leaves of lettuce. Only $6. That's literally the kind of stuff you buy there. Like, you're not far from the truth. And his last one is, and the Steam Deck itself, if that counts, and the Dreamcast fishing rod.
I forgot about the Dreamcast fishing rod. That thing was awesome.
I have never used a fishing rod peripheral for a video
You should
game.
look it up. It was actually pretty cool.
The last fishing game I think I ever played was on the Nintendo, the NES. It was like some sort of Bass Pro fishing game, but I don't remember what it was.
There was one for Super Nintendo also, but I didn't use I don't know if they had a Super Nintendo fishing rod peripheral. I never used one if they did, but I remember the Dreamcast one.
Yeah, and I fished in World of Warcraft, if that counts.
Yeah, I fish in Zelda.
Yeah,
that's an underrated aspect of it.
Yeah, I did that too. I think cooking was my favorite thing to do in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, fishing in Twilight Princess is one of the best aspects about that game.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. From Mr. Tyler Watson, his top 5 controllers. His number 5, the Xbox S-Type controller, original Xbox. The second controller released for the OG Xbox after the Duke. I remember that one. This one was a bit slimmer for folks without Andre the Giant hands. It fits in your hand comfortably, and the button layout is great, with the exception of the start and select buttons. I remember that controller too. Number 4, the GameCube controller. What? The GameCube controller not at number 1 on a list? Gasp, shock and awe. I kid. But while I do like the GameCube controller, it has a couple of flaws. It's not the most comfortable in your hands, and that D-pad just sucks. The D-pad's not that great. I'll give him that one.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Granted, you're not going to use it for much, but if you have the Game Boy player hooked up, you definitely notice how bad it is. Number 3, the DualShock series for PlayStation. Once the DualShock released, there was no need to ever use the original PS1 controller again. Those dual sticks and rumble changed everything. It may be controversial, but I prefer the PlayStation stick layout versus the Xbox. I don't necessarily think that's controversial. It might be in the minority, but I don't have an issue with it.
Right,
it just feels a lot more natural to me.
I got to stop reading the chat room because they're just distracting me.
I feel that each one kept getting better, with maybe the exception of the PS3 one. Number 2, Game Boy Advance. Now, hear me out. I propose that a handheld can be considered a controller as well, since the controller is built into it.
I'll allow it.
So with the GBA, it's just great to hold in your hands. The button layout is great, and it doesn't make your hand cramp up having to do a claw grip to hold it. While I love the GBA SP, the only advantages it has over the original is the backlight, the rechargeable battery, and the clamshell design. And you can mod an original GBA to have those first 2, which is true because I had that done to mine, which I still have to this day. His number 1, the SNES controller, and now we reach the pinnacle of controllers. The SNES is probably the most comfortable controller to hold in your hands, and the buttons are all well within ease of reach, making it have 6 buttons with such an inspired design, giving more options for game functions. More importantly, it made it compatible with fighting games, which blew up soon after release.
So I knew the Super Nintendo controller was going to be up there on a lot of lists.
Yeah. He also has honorable mentions as well. Let's see. These are going to be non-conventional controllers. One is the Nintendo Zapper, as we mentioned. It was really fun to use. For PS2 and Xbox, the Capcom Street Fighter 15th anniversary controllers. I do not remember these at all.
I don't think I ever played those.
Capcom put out controllers for the PS2 and Xbox celebrating the 15th anniversary of Street Fighter. They changed the layout of the buttons, which made some of them easier to access. For people like me that prefer D-pad over fight sticks for fighting games, it's the best one you can use on those consoles. Each one was modeled after a different character and had a cool lenticular image of them on it. And there were multiple characters for each one, so you could pick your favorite. And he's got a couple of pictures in the Discord chat. And his last honorable mention is the Wu-Tang controller for PS1, released only in Europe as a bundle with the game Wu-Tang Shaolin style. This controller is modeled after the Wu-Tang Clan logo. It was apparently uncomfortable to hold, which it looks like it is. Had no analog sticks and no rumble, but damn, did it look good.
It does look cool.
It does look really cool. I wouldn't want to play it, but it does look really cool.
And I was looking at here, he was talking about the Capcom Street Fighter 15th anniversary controllers for the PS2 and Xbox. We're at the 30th anniversary now. oh, I feel old.
I'll after the show, I'll just start digging my grave.
I think I just had a small stroke on air. And up next, we have I Am the Rampage, who says
Rampage.
And is he serious with this? At number 5, he says Wiimote. Who votes for the Wiimote as your favorite? How did that thing be your favorite controller? He's in the chat room.
I don't hate the Wiimote, but I wouldn't have put it in my top 5.
He's in the chat room. I want to hear this explanation. But I digress. You know, it's your list. You put whatever you want on it. It's fine. Number 4, the PlayStation 4 controller. Number 3, the Xbox One controller. Number 2, Xbox Series XS controller. And number 1, Google Stadia. I don't even think I've ever seen the Google Stadia controller. I know Wally probably has.
I'm going to look this up.
And then his honorable mentions are the SNES, the NES Advantage, and arcade sticks.
Okay, so it looks like a slimmer version of the Switch Pro controller.
Huh.
I'll allow it.
I think he's pulling our legs a little bit.
Props for the Wiimote selection. That was I was not expecting anyone to even put it in their honorable mentions, much less their top 5.
It says he loves waggle controls.
If we named these episodes, that would be the name of this one.
And Jessica jumped in the chat room and said he's serious. So I guess he's serious about it. Well, hey, if you like it, more power to you. But man, that those Wii controllers, the nunchuck and all that, those things were terrible.
Wii Sports was fun with those, though, especially the boxing one.
Yeah, but you couldn't really do much else with those controllers.
That was the interesting thing about playing the remastered. I don't know if you'd call it remastered, but like the re-released version of Skyward Sword, because that game was made with motion controls because it came out for the Wii.
Yeah.
But you still had to use the motion controls for the Switch.
I mean,
and it was really frustrating.
That's really the reason why I haven't gone back and tried to get another Wii. I've had plenty of opportunities to buy a new Wii, but because I lost mine in the divorce a few years ago, but I just haven't gone back to get another one just because I wasn't. There's nothing about the Wii that makes me want to go back and play anything on it.
I could respect that. Next up, we have Donner Party of 5. Number 5, PlayStation DualShock. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yep.
There's a reason it's been a mainstay PlayStation for 20 plus years. Totally agree with that. Number 4, Super Nintendo. First controller to really implement trigger buttons, and the design is so spiffy. Number 3, oh, here we go. The Wavebird GameCube controller. You might have been cool during the GameCube days, but were you Wavebird cool? I wasn't, but I still had a Wavebird anyway.
Derek was.
The number 2 is the Wiimote. Wow, number 2. That's wow. Simple yet satisfying. Even your grandma could use it.
I guess we must have missed something with that Wiimote.
I mean, like, I liked the Wiimote. I just wouldn't have put it in my top 5.
Yeah, I don't know. Even going back on the Wii and playing older, buying. I had some stuff that I bought from the Nintendo shop. Like I had Star Tropics, and things on the Nintendo Wii, and I even had like the new Super Mario Brothers and stuff. I just hated using that controller. It just wasn't great. I'm,
Did I ever did I ever tell my my funny Wiimote story
oh, did you
on the
smash a
podcast?
TV?
No, I did not. No, I put a friend in his place.
Let's hear this.
Okay, so you've met my friend Robbie, right?
Uh huh.
So he was playing a mutual friend of ours. I had a few friends over. This is when I lived with my parents at the time, and we were all in my room playing Wii Sports. And I was in my computer at my desk, just working on something. I can't remember what it was, but one of our mutual friends, he liked to run his mouth a little too much, and he was in rare form this day. So he was playing Robbie in Wii Boxing, and he beat him, and he was just going on and on and on, and I had finally had enough of it. Now you know I'm a very patient person,
Mm-hmm.
but even I have my limits. So I was like, okay, I'll play you. Didn't say a single word. We start our match. He does not land a single hit on me. I destroyed him.
Awesome.
And what did I do? I set the controller down, went back to my computer, and started working again. Did not say a single word.
The
He
silent
he
killer.
he he shut his mouth after that.
Nice.
Oh, and his number one, Donner Party of Five's number one is the PS5 DualSense. This will be biased because I recently got my hands on my PS5 and have been playing the hell out of it. But the microphone feature built in is mind blowingly good for team chat.
I didn't know the PS5 DualSense had that, the microphone feature. That's pretty cool.
I feel like that's something that is improved with each like generation of console. Yeah,
I,
because there are controllers that have built-in mics, but I've always known them to be really bad. That's why I always got a headset.
I remember the
Especially
first
during like the Halo days.
I remember the first time I heard stuff coming out of the PS4 controller playing a game, because I was always an Xbox guy, and got a PS4 a few years ago, and I was playing. I don't remember what I was playing, but I didn't know it had a speaker inside the controller. So I was doing something like opening a door or something, or somebody must have been talking or something, but noise started coming out of the controller, and I was like, "What the hell what kind of witchery is this?
What sorcery is
What
this?
black magic is this?" But it's pretty cool. I'm used to it now because almost every game does it.
Yeah.
But we got one more, and this is last but certainly not least, Bethany Fox, who is our community manager over on the Discord. At number 5, well, I'll do the honorable mentions first. The Wii U gamepad. That's our first Wii U
Yeah,
mention on
that
here.
I will say that the Wii U gamepad was an innovator because that led to the Switch.
Hmm.
But the Wii U gamepad was pretty cool.
I don't think I ever played a Wii U ever.
Still
Um,
have mine.
the Wii Pro controller, PS2 and PS3 controllers. I when I go back and play the PS2 now, I'm not a fan of those controllers. They just feel so small when you go back and play that one now. Especially, I play my PS4 pretty regularly, and now going back and playing the PS2 games, it just feels so tiny and breakable in my hands.
Those controllers have if you find used ones in like retro gaming stores, anytime I see one, I'm like, I bet that controller has a lot of mileage on
Yeah.
it.
I actually have two PS2 controllers right now that need to be looked at because they don't. The left thumbstick is just drifting really bad. So I need to find someone that knows how to work on PS2 controllers, because I have two of them and I don't want to get rid of them. They're still
Yeah.
great shape. They just need to be cleaned or something, I guess. And list on his actual list, number 5, the Hori Split Pad Pro for Switch. All right, I'm gonna have to look this up because I've never heard of this.
Yeah, I haven't
The
either. Let's
Hori
see what that is.
Split. What is it?
Pad
Split
Pro.
Pad Pro. What
Let's
is
see.
what is this thing?
Oh, I've seen this before.
Let me see.
Yeah, it's like you have the Pro controller on each side of your Switch. I've
Oh
seen
yeah,
these
yeah, yeah,
before.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
This is sort of what that controller, that holder does for mine. It creates this kind of like the rounded edges with the handles. Like it's basically what it turns my Switch into.
Right.
Just without having to pay a bunch of money. Like this one looks like it is. But this actually
Yeah.
looks pretty cool. I would get one of these if I didn't already have that handle.
Yeah.
Ah, that's pretty sweet. I like that. Let's see. Number 4, the GameCube controller. Of course, it's almost on
Hmm.
everybody's list here. The Number 3, the Xbox One controller. Haven't used the Series S yet, but I'd probably like that too. Number 2, the Switch Pro controller, which yes, it is very reminiscent of the 360 controller. I love it. I love using my Switch Pro controller. And then at number 1, the PS5 controller. I still haven't used it, so I can't speak to it.
We're gonna have to change that
Yeah, Joey
at some
said
point.
he just looked up the Wu Tang controller, and that looks awfully uncomfortable. Yeah, it does, but it looks really cool.
Yeah, it does look really. That'd be something I'd like to have as like a display item,
Yeah, that's something
but
you hang on the
I would never
wall.
use it.
Yeah, that's something you definitely hang on. That's a conversation piece, is what that
I was
is.
about to say that's a conversation starter.
But that brings us to the end of this month's top 5 lists, and thank you everybody that contributed. I love doing the top 5 lists. We got a
Yeah.
lot of submissions for. I asked everybody to send their ideas for future top 5 lists, and of course we got some joke answers in here. Like, let's see, here's one for Jason: top 5 Final Fantasy games. I can only name one, so that would be
So it's your 1 through 5.
yeah. My 1 through 5 is Final Fantasy 7. There you go.
Shortest episode ever.
We have top 5 video games made into movies, which actually ain't a bad idea.
No.
Top 5 movies, and these are from I Am the Rampage. Top 5 movies that were made into video games. I can't name that many games or movies that were then made. Wait, no, I'm thinking the other. I should be thinking
What?
like stuff like Friday the 13th and um,
Yeah.
like yeah, they do that all the time. So yeah, I don't know why I got confused there. I think I'm having a stroke. I'm just getting old. Top 5 video game franchise series. That's a good one. Let's see. We had Tyler who top 5 games of insert franchise name here. Top 5 games of the insert console name here. That's not bad. Top
Yeah,
5
I like that.
consoles. But yeah, we got a few of those in. And if you have an idea for a good top 5 list, please just send it on over to us. You can email us or send it on Twitter or go join our Discord, which we told you a little while ago. You can go to our Twitter at Nerd Cave Retro and go to right up to the top there, and there's a never-ending Discord link that you can click, and it takes you right into Discord, takes you right to our page.
Hmm.
But that's going to bring us to the end of the episode, I think. Is there anything else we need to talk about before we get out of here?
Speaking of top 5 for next week's episode of the Derek Diamond Experience, this is going to be a fun one. I'm going to be doing top 5 childhood cartoons.
Ooh, I like
So look out for social media later in the week. I'll be making a
that.
post. You guys just send in your lists and I will read them on the show.
I
You can head over to
already
linktree.com/D Diamond podcast for podcast subscription information. Top 5 $6 bargain bin items. That's a good one.
That's actually pretty good, Joey. I can do that right
okay.
now.
Yeah, I could get behind that. But yeah, linktree.com/D Diamond podcast. If you want to follow my movie at the feature movie on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Rampage says top 5 episodes that Joey Image TV mentions. Days Gone. Hey, it's his favorite
I agree with
game.
Joey. All of them.
Everybody
Yeah.
has a favorite game, and Days Gone is great. And I can't. And Joey says that there's a movie coming, so we'll see. I will be there day one to see a movie.
Joey has to have some kind of cameo in it. I don't
he
know how
has
we
to.
make that happen, but he needs to be in it.
Let's start a campaign online when they announce that movie. We hashtag Joey Image in the Days Gone movie. We'll start that hashtag and we'll get it trending.
It has to happen.
It has to. I mean, the dude himself, just off of the recommendations, had probably sold 500,000 copies of that game just off him alone.
Yeah, I think so.
The top 5 cartoon series, like, dude, I already had like 10 immediately pop in my head when you said
It's
that.
gonna be tough.
That's gonna be hard, man, because I still watch all the cartoons that I liked as a kid.
Same. Like I have a ballpark like area of like, okay, I can name 5 off the top of my head that would probably make it.
Mhm.
It's just the order that's gonna be tough.
And if anybody can answer this question for me, if any of our listeners work for Disney or like Disney Plus or know someone that works at Disney Plus, can you please tell me why Muppet Babies is not streaming on Disney Plus?
I thought you were gonna ask about Jared Leto starring in the
Well,
the
that
Tron
too.
sequel.
That too. Why can 2 questions? Why is Jared Leto allowed to be in the Tron movie? And number 2, why is Muppet Babies not streaming anywhere?
Muppet Babies was great.
I
I
love
love
that
watching
cartoon.
Muppet Babies.
Why that's not available? That's a travesty.
I've got the theme song stuck in my head now.
I know. I'm thinking of it as we speak.
Oh, here we go. Top 5 NCR top 5 list.
I like it. That's
Top 5, top 5.
That's meta right there.
Yeah.
But that brings us to the end of the show. And so I think that's going to do it for this week. And tell everybody where they can find the Derek Diamond Experience.
Yeah, just like I said earlier, linktree.com/DDiamond podcast. This week, Jeremy Branch and Chad Sanders joined me again to wrap up our discussion on the feature. We talk about we go really in depth on what happened during the premiere and our reaction to it. So you can check that out on all podcasting platforms. And like I said, next week I'll be doing top 5 childhood cartoons. Probably making a post around Wednesday. So I'll be recording it probably around Friday because I have to work full days Saturday and Sunday. So just get me your list by Friday morning, and then I will read them on the show.
And go check out the Open Micers podcast. Last week, we didn't get to do a regular episode because my internet went out, and we had to do the shit. We had to reschedule our guest, and me and Jacob did a Hostful Goodness episode Wednesday night, which I was angry, and it was another. If you like the Nerd Cave Retro Rant episodes, you'll love this episode of the Open Micers podcast because I was so angry with my internet and everything. All I did was list all the bands and musical artists that I hate. And then we talked about some childhood trauma stuff. And then you can kind of get a little bit of an idea of why I am the way I am. So go check out Open Micers at Open Micers on Twitter and Instagram.
It was a really fun episode. I really enjoyed it.
It was fun, but it was kind of like it was a therapy session. So if you like that sort of stuff.
Hey, that's what podcasts are good for sometimes.
Yeah, get all that stuff out. But I'm going to go ahead and get us out of here. And let me play our music here. If you would like to play the music, there we go. If you'd like to email us, you can email us at nerdcaveretro@gmail.com. And nerdcaveretro.com is our link tree. And that takes you to our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, our Patreon, and of course, our merch shop, which you can go straight to at ncrmerch.com. You can get t-shirts, you can get hats, stickers, magnets, bags, mugs, and whatever your nerdy little heart desires. Follow us on social media at NerdCaveRetro, at JPunktastic, and at Derek_Diamond. And of course, leave us a review and or a 5-star rating on all podcasting platforms. And also, go over to BResCoffeeCo.com. Use our code NCR for 10% off your order. So Derek, please tell them what it's all about.
May the way of the hero lead to the Triforce.
Yes. And that's an episode.
That's one of the best shows we've done in a while.
I know, that was fun.
That was really good.
Everything was sort of falling apart in the beginning, and then everything just sort of fell into place.
Yeah. No, it all worked out.
But hopefully Streamlabs will work itself out.